And I'm going to be talking to you about our cruise from Bali to Komodo. I lead our cruises in different parts of the world, in Scotland, the Arctic, the Maldives, Baja, and sometimes the Azores, our holidays in the Azores, which aren't cruises, they're land-based, but whale watching tours in the Azores, as well as our cruises from Bali to Komodo. And that's where I'm going to take you from on a journey on this evening as we sail from these islands east of Bali around to West Nusa Tenggara, which takes about 10 days. And just so you can get your bearings, this is the region I'll be talking about, which is outlined in red here. And Indonesia straddles both Indian and Pacific Oceans. And it's a country born of fire. The region has been shaped over the millennia by huge tectonic forces and the slow but unstoppable collision of the Indo-Australian and Eurasian tectonic plates. And from Bali, which is just here, if you can see my cursor, a great arc of volcanic islands stretches to the east along here, including Lombok, Sumbawa, Komodo and Flores, all of which are islands that we'll see, which are along here. And some of these are now quiet. The heat from beneath them has subsided a long time ago, but others still retain their internal furnace and awaken from time to time. And when looking at this map, it's really amazing to think that this is considered one country, because it's made up of over 17,000 islands, 300 different languages are spoken here, and 6 official religions are observed. And as you'd expect, it's a real melting pot of different cuisines and cultures, with many islands being quite different from each other. All of them lie in tropical seas, home to the most diverse marine life of anywhere in the world, with over 3,500 species of fish, which is more than enough to keep even the keenest of snorkelers totally enthralled, and a wonderful array of tropical whales and dolphins as well. But the culture also provides a vibrant and colourful stimulation on all of the senses. And we've got some images here. There's Pura Bratan, which is a Shiva Hindu temple, food offerings as well, which you'll see frequently in Bali, out on the streets, the edges of temples, outside shops. It's really just a fascinating place. And we fly into Denpasar on Bali, which is on the southern tip of Bali, if you can see me move my cursor just here. And should anyone wish to do a pre-tour extension, then we travel to the northwest of Bali, where we visit Bali Barat National Park, and we stay there for 3 days. I'll just spend just 1 minute or 2 minutes telling you briefly about this. This is our accommodation on the extension. It's a completely secluded lodge in the heart of the park, and we stay in tranquil bungalows and we go out birding each day. So this is a bird watching extension. If you don't want to go bird watching, perhaps you're traveling with your partner who wants to go birding, then there are alternative activities that you can do. You can have a massage at the spa, relax on the small beach while sipping out of a coconut, or go snorkeling on the coral reef just next to the bar. And it feels very exclusive and quiet and secluded. So we go out bird watching in the mornings before breakfast, and then again in the afternoon when it's cooler. So during the middle of the day is free time. And this is a highlight of our stay here. This is a Javan banded pitta, which we saw hopping around in the leaf litter within some bushes, and we positioned ourselves to get a good view of it and just marveled at the stunning plumage of this lovely bird, which was lit up beautifully in the sunlight, about only 10-12 meters away from us. Java is west of Bali, but it can be seen on Bali, but not further east than that. And another gem of staying in this national park are the Bali starlings. Now, these are critically endangered and they're highly sought after for the pet trade. And by the early 1990s, the wild population had diminished to only around 30 birds. And the continuance of extreme poaching meant that 10 years later, there were only 2 or 3 breeding pairs left in the national park. Following a captive breeding and release program, the numbers have thankfully now increased, and wild-born starlings are now once again being seen breeding in the park. And seeing these bright white birds fly overhead and on a couple of occasions perched on the tops of trees next to us was just a fantastic sight. And if you don't join us on the extension, then this is the start of the holiday, a lovely beachside hotel, which is a short ride from the airport. So those on the extension will arrive here at the same time, roughly in the afternoon. We have chalet type huts right on the beach. It's a great place to wander and just explore. There's culture hidden all around even in the hotel, the hidden shrines in the hotel grounds and signs of worship. And Bali's official religion is Hindu, but it's far too animistic to be considered the same vein as Indian Hinduism. The Balinese worship the trinity of Brahma, Shiva, and Vishnu, which are three aspects of one God, one invisible God, amongst many other gods, such as the gods of earth, fire, water, mountains, gods of fertility, rice, technology, books, and even demons who inhabit the world underneath the ocean. So there are hundreds of different shrines to be uncovered, and it's quite fun just to go exploring even around the hotel grounds. You don't have to go very far at all. And we'll go for a dinner, our evening meal, just at a nice bar along the beach. And there's a huge, sumptuous breakfast waiting for us the next morning. And then we board our vessel, which is our home for the next week. We use both of these boats, depending on which week it is that we're running the trip. So the itinerary online will explain very clearly which boat it is. They're both very similar, and I've been on both boats. Both are fantastic and superb for our needs. And the typical day that you see here, we'll wake up in the morning, have some fresh fruit, a slice of toast, a quick cup of tea, and then we'll be out snorkeling. And the water is just luxuriously warm. It feels like you're swimming around in a bath, really. And we'll have a lovely morning snorkel, hop back on board, showers, and then a full hot breakfast. And we'll move out into deeper water where we'll sail for the day looking for cetaceans. Then we'll snorkel again in the afternoon, later afternoon, have an evening talk, either by myself or my co-leader Chaz, and then we'll have dinner. And we'll also try and weave in island walks as well, either early in the morning, perhaps late in the evening, depending on whereabouts we are and what we've seen that day and how our itinerary is going. And these are just some photographs here for you to see what the boat looks like, so you can get a flavour of what the accommodation is like. We have a suite here, a lovely saloon, a sun deck up at the top. This is the party deck on the bottom right there. It's great fun to sit out there and read a book. And I always encourage people to join me out on deck as well. People can come and join me at the front of the boat to look for cetaceans as we're sailing. The more eyes, the better. I'll be out. I find it really difficult to leave the bow of a boat with my binoculars. As long as we're moving, there's potentially things that we could see. So I'm known for even taking my lunches out on the front deck, because I just don't like to leave it. But it's great when I get a really enthusiastic crowd like this, where people just want to be out spotting with me all the time, which we so often get on Naturetrek trips, with people full of enthusiasm for it. And we've barely even left the island of Bali before our cruise starts to get really exciting, because overnight, if I just move my cursor here, so we'll start in Denpasar and then we start to sail east. So overnight we're going to cross the line of Wallacea, which is an imaginary line here in between Bali and Lombok. And this is where naturalist Alfred Russel Wallace, the co-discoverer of evolution by the process of natural selection, of course, along with our very own Charles Darwin, noted on his travels that Asian flora and fauna gave way to Australasian flora and fauna. So when he arrived from Bali onto Lombok, he expected to hear the sounds of woodpeckers, fruit thrushes, and oriental barbets that he had heard so often in Malaysia, in Borneo, and on Bali. But instead, he was met with the piercing call of the helmeted friarbird and Australian cockatoos. And this is because 17,000 years ago, during the last ice age, the planet's sea levels were much lower. So the water was locked up as ice. So the landmass on the west, everything from Java westwards, was all joined. But there was a trench between Bali and Lombok, which is 1,000 meters deep. And this never went away. So this was still filled with water, and therefore limited vegetation dispersal, and thus it limited the species which was able to feed upon it. So they couldn't get any further than Lombok, any species coming from the east. And this led him to discover evolution at the same time as Charles Darwin did. And this is typical scenery. We stop off at islands like this. This is Satonda. This is an extinct volcano. It's a fantastic place to snorkel. It's one of my most favorite places to stop. And we see no one else around here. We just have the reef to ourselves. We stay here for the night just off of this island. And at sunset, it's a fantastic spot to position ourselves to look for sunder fruit bats leaving their roosts. And once in position, we'll get our binoculars and go up on deck and see hundreds of black dots in the trees. And as the sun starts to go down, they all start flying. And this is because they nest on Satonda, on this island, but they go and feed on the neighboring island of Sumbawa. But they don't nest on Sumbawa because there's more disturbance. There's other animals that could disturb them. There's humans, there's dogs and things like that. So, but there's not enough food at all on this small volcano for them. And this is what it looks like when they start leaving their roosts. Absolutely incredible. And this is what they're, you can see them like during the day, all tucked up and having a roost. And when we sail off the following morning, we'll probably have another snorkel. This is my group out here. You can see me giggling in the back, all having a good laugh en route to another snorkel. We have 2 small ribs on board, which you can see being driven here by really fantastic, experienced crew, which run us over to the reefs. There's a cool box, which you can see next to my yellow fins there. And the crew is so at catering, good at catering for us. When you hand your fins back on board, and they know which fins are yours, and they'll number your fins at the start of the trip, and then they number a water bottle for you, which they keep in this cool box. So I have number 20 still on the underside of my fins, even though I haven't been out to Bali for 2.5 years now because of the pandemic. Still have a number 20 on the underside of my fins, and they'll take my fins off me, pull me up on board, and then they reach into the cool box and grab the cool water bottle which has a number 20 on it, and they hand that straight to you. You can just sit and have a lovely cold drink as they sail you back on board. Absolutely brilliant. And it is just another world under the waves. These are cliffs here which we were snorkeling along, and they're carpeted with coral and sea fans and sea stars and anemones and hiding places for thousands and thousands of fish. And we were swimming here in a channel with apparently barren cliffs above us. And you think, gosh, there's not much to see here. The water looks a little bit dark. Is it too appealing? I'm not sure. You hop in, and then this is what greets you. You don't need to swim too far to enjoy it either. You can just stay in one spot for 10 minutes and keep seeing new things. And every time I watch an episode of Blue Planet, I'm really taken back to the reefs of Indonesia. Indeed, much of it was actually filmed here. The 2 items, species at the top, sea slugs. They're very difficult to find, but we have dive guides on board who will be helping me find them and pointing them out to you. And also an octopus at the bottom left there, and anemone fish. And I'm also very happy to run a fish club each evening to help people ID their photographs. So an underwater camera will be a great companion to take with you on this trip. It's great fun just sitting in the evening trying to get your head around the myriad of fish species that they have there. I've got fish guidebooks on board. You can take your own, and it's great. Just I have clients who enjoy just putting a tick next to the photographs of the species that they've seen in their books, and for memory's sake, really. And the fish vary vastly. Some are stunningly beautiful and make a point of standing out on the reef. They really want to be seen, like this mandarin fish here, absolutely gorgeous. But others opt for camouflage. Now, there are 2 fish in this image, and I wonder if you can see them. I'll give you a few seconds. I'll give you a hint. You're looking for ghost pipefish. If anyone knows what ghost pipefish look like, then it might help you try and find them. But if you've, someone, yeah, Lindsay's raising a hand. Lindsay, I'm going to take that to mean that you can see them. Well done, you get the gold star. So I'll move my cursor here, and we've got 2 fish. We've got one here, and they're hanging vertically in the water with their heads down. So this is the tail of the first fish, and this is its nose here. And we have another fish here just behind it, and these are ghost pipefish. So beautifully evolved to just completely mimic the seagrass which is behind them, and they float motionlessly in the water. So they just float backwards and forwards, getting carried with the sea current. which is just incredible and an amazing example of camouflage. If I just move it onto another slide here, you can see another ghost pipefish, but this has got a much more contrasting background, so you can see the sort of fish that we're looking for. But really fantastic to see them out on the reef. Again, very tricky to find, but myself and the guides are always looking out for unique little critters like that to point out to you. Many turtles as well can be seen. This is a hawksbill turtle, quite confiding, which can sometimes approach the cameras, and lots of fish to be seen in the backgrounds there. And it's not just turtles, other larger species which we can see on the reefs as well. And my particular favorite species to see has to be this one, which you're about to see here when we dive into the water. Of course, this is the manta ray. I'll just mute the sounds there. The manta ray, which are absolutely majestic animals, and they're really a privilege to see. They're feeding here on plankton, which you can see is all the small stuff scattering about in the photograph. It looks like underwater snow in the video, I should say. And they have these cephalic fins, which they use to guide the food into their mouth. Extremely peaceful creatures, and they're feeding on plankton, so zooplankton and phytoplankton, just small microscopic animals and plants in the water. There's actually a jack swimming underneath that ray. It's sheltering and hiding. It's completely shadowing it, which is quite funny. And reef mantas are around sort of 3 meters from wingtip to wingtip. But oceanic mantas, these are reef mantas here, oceanic mantas get to about 6 meters, which is an incredible size. And whenever I see a manta ray, I just have an extreme feeling of electricity just going straight down to my fingertips. And it's just an incredible experience. We have people talking in the bar every evening excitedly, comparing how close the manta ray or the turtle or fish came to them and sharing photos with one another. And it's really just wonderful. And we'll get off for walks as frequently as we can. I particularly enjoy sunset walks. So this is Padar, and if you've been to the Galapagos, it might look familiar with a similar volcanic topography which has formed the 2 bays here. And it's really nice to spend half an hour walking up this island. All walks are completely optional, I'll say, so you don't have to go very far. And walking up this island to see the lovely sunset view. And Komodo National Park is a landscape of contrast between rugged hillsides of dry savanna, pockets of thorny green vegetation, and also brilliant white sandy beaches and blue waters surging over coral. And it's really unquestionably one of the most dramatic landscapes in Indonesia. And it's located in the center of the Indonesian archipelago between the islands of Sumbawa and Flores. And it's composed of 3 major islands, Rinca, Komodo, and Padar. And we'll walk on the islands of Rinca and Komodo. We get to the islands early to avoid the heat of the day. This, again, is the beauty of having our own charter. We can just get there at whatever time suits us. And we'll make the most of the cooler temperatures. We'll walk around with guides. This is the chap here in the blue top who will stay with us at all times. And the bird life of interest includes the yellow-crested cockatoo, which is critically endangered due to poaching for the pet trade. It's lovely to see them fly overhead in pairs occasionally. Green jungle fowl, a stunning bird. Olive-backed sunbird. Timor deer, and whenever there is prey, there's going to be predators, and this is what we're searching for. It's the most remarkable inhabitant of the Komodo National Park. It's the Komodo dragon, of course, and they can reach 2.5 to 3 meters in length, weigh up to 90 kilos, and they're the largest lizards in the world. And they'll feed on wild pigs, deer, water buffalo. And they have venom glands. The venom, it's a mild venom, it acts as an anticoagulant, but they also have a mouthful of bacteria as well, which brings on sepsis when they bite their prey. And they can walk up to 7 miles a day, but they usually prefer to stay closer to home. They're rarely seen venturing far from the valleys where they've been hatched. And they exist nowhere else in the world. And they're of great scientific interest, especially from an evolutionary point of view. And the species is the last representative, really, of a relic population of large lizards that once lived across Indonesia and Australia. And we'll take 3 opportunities to see them, twice on land and once by boat as well. And going to see them on the beach is a great experience, because you see, you get to take photographs just like this of them coming into the water. And we're also, I've been mentioning, we're on the lookout for cetaceans. This is a sperm whale, which we saw on one of my recent trips out to Bali, most recent, when I was out there a couple of years ago. And we have a videographer on board. It's just a part of the crew. They tend to provide a videographer who had a drone, and we sent a drone up to photograph this sperm whale, and we just got stunning views of it, watching it live on the camera as well as live right in front of us. Also, false killer whales, melon-headed whales, spinner dolphins, spotted dolphins, rissos and Fraser's dolphins. Other possible species include blue whales, Cuvier's beaked whales, dwarf sperm whales, rough-toothed dolphins. It's a fantastic place for a lot of different cetacean species to be seen. These are pantropical spotted dolphins here, and Fraser's dolphins there. They get a very pink belly. And this isn't pink pigment. This is, they're actually warm. They're actually a little bit flushed, a little bit warm from doing too much active swimming. So they've got clear skin down there. When they get flushed and a bit warm, they get pink tummies, but fabulous to see. And as is tradition on a Naturetrek presentation, I'll end here with a sunset. And if you've got really keen eyes, cetacean spotting eyes like myself, you'll clearly see there's a whole load of melon-headed whales in the water. Just in front of us. There's actually about 200 we had around us, but only in the image there you'll see just 2 there and 2 or 3 here. Please do go online to our tour page. I'll send an email linking to this tomorrow, where you'll see a video of our cruise, which gives a really good comprehensive overview of the trip, and some fantastic cinematography of the underwater snorkeling as well. But that's just a taster of our cruise to Indonesia, and